Hey everybody, it's Miss Yansen. This is a quick video on how to create a frequency distribution from data. This is an example problem where we have a data set given to us here, all these data points here, to show us 30 different screw lengths, and we're asked to create a frequency distribution. So we want to fill out this table with lower class limits, upper class limits, and the frequency, counting how many of these data points fall within those limits. We're told that we want to start with a lower class limit of 0.72, and we can see that indicated here in the table. And then we want to use a class width of 1/100th of an inch. It would be very tedious for us to go through and count all of these frequencies. One thing that we could do relatively quickly is we could go ahead and fill out these lower class limits, because we know the class width is 0.01. So all we have to do to fill out the rest of these lower class limits is add 0.01 to the previous lower class limit. So for example, here we would have 0.73. There would be a 0 on the end of it that we don't necessarily have to write. And I'll go ahead and fill out the rest of this column. Now that we have all of our lower class limits, we can now go fill out our upper class limits. And to get our upper class limits, I'm going to look at where the next class started. So if this class started at 0.73, I want the previous class to end at 0.729. And once we have, and you can do the same logic and say, oh, if this class starts at 0.74, then this class ended at 0.739. But honestly, we could just continue and add the class width again, because you can get successive class limits by adding the class width. So notice how I'm getting these numbers. I'm adding the class width vertically to get these, okay? So now that we have this, what would be very time consuming is to go in and put in these frequencies. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this data in StatCrunch. We have this technology, let us make use of it. So now that I have the data opened up in StatCrunch, I'm just going to rename this column. This is a good practice if you're going to be using StatCrunch, to just make sure you're using the title of the column where the data is appropriately. So StatCrunch just put all of that data in this column for us. And now we want to tell it to go make a table. So we're going to go to Stat, Table, and we want to see a frequency table. We want to see a frequency table from the data that's in the screw lengths column. We only want to see a frequency table, so we'll only click on frequency. And we do want to bin the numerical values. We want to put them in bins, in groups. We've already decided how we want to group them. Now let's tell StatCrunch how we want to group them. Well, we want to group them starting at 0.72. That's where we started in the table here. And we want to use a class width of 0.01. That was given to us right here. In fact, we could have literally just copied and pasted these values in here. Let's go ahead and compute this. Notice that StatCrunch is giving us the same thing that we have here. You may say, hey, I see 0.73 here, but there is a parenthesis, which means 0.73 is not included in the first class. It's included in the second class where it's written with a bracket. That's interval notation. It's okay if you don't understand it, but if you can understand how I got these values here, then you're good to go. All we need to do now is copy over these frequency values, 36993. And let's make sure this is right. Check answer, nice work. Boom, frequency distribution created without us having to sit there and sort through all these values and figure out what goes in which class. Very easy to make a mistake. Let's just use the technology.